Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Greater Newark Enterprises Corporation's monthly Lunch and Learn webinar series. My name is Victor Salam. I'm the Executive Director here at GNEC. We have a really great conversation lined up today about really important topics. Before we jump in, let me just say a little bit that GNEC, we are a community development financial institution based in Newark, New Jersey, and we offer lending products and business support services to entrepreneurs and micro businesses from underserved and underbanked communities right here in the great state of New Jersey. Uh, One of the great things about this conversation is that we have the honor and the privilege of having two outstanding individuals from Prudential Financial. Basically, Prudential was our first funder for GNEC, and they've been with us for the past 20 years. So we're very grateful for that relationship. In terms of what we're talking about today, I think one of the topics that has come up is sort of financial health and retirement planning for entrepreneurs of any sort of or managing any type size business. And for us, it's a key topic. And the reason is that GNEC, while providing all these services to entrepreneurs and business owners, focus specifically about business. This past year, the team here at GNEC has taken on a little bit of a different sort of strategic perspective, looking at the client more holistically, not just as a business owner, but as an individual, the family, an individual that is trying to grow long-term equity. And growing long-term equity is really, really difficult. It's been difficult in the past. It's even probably more difficult today. So we want to provide information on how to be able to really grow long-term equity and keep someone's financial house in order, as the title says. That's why this conversation is so critical. And frankly, there's no better company out there to talk about building long-term equity for yourself and for your family than Prudential Financial. This is a company, obviously, that is the most important anchor institution here in the city of Newark, but also just celebrated its 150 years in existence. So, with all that said, I want to introduce a key person for this conversation, and it's Portia Field. Portia is the Vice President for Blueprints to Black Wealth at Prudential Financial and the Inclusive Communities Solutions team. And then I'll turn it to her, and then she'll introduce our other guest speaker. So take it away, Portia.
Thanks, Victor, and hello to everyone on the call today. And Victor did such a great job. So I have smaller talking points to provide to you, but again, just very excited for this conversation today. When we talk about Blueprints of Black Wealth, what that really is the first time that Prudential has created a holistic strategy that really unites our efforts that we've done philanthropically for 40, 50 years with the business. And when we talk about uniting those efforts, it is making sure that we are truly living out our 150-year-old purpose and vision of really helping to solve financial challenges by expanding access. When we talk about expanding access, the first bit that we think about in diverse consumers, communities, not just Black communities, is really about knowledge, education. So what we do is a lot of different engagements in Newark and across the United States, and bringing in our very, very, very much qualified financial advisors, such as George R. Barnes, who you will hear from next, to really provide that knowledge that you have. We know that these conversations may or may not have happened, as many of us have grown up. So what we're trying to do is really change that narrative to have really structured, holistic conversations with communities that need it most, that may not have received it due to, various reasons within our political and historic climate. And that's really what we're looking to do, is to really bridge those gaps, and to help everyone have financial security, no matter where you are in your journey. So I really look forward to this being the first of many conversations and collaborations with GNEC. We really appreciate your partnership. And I will, without further ado, pass it over to George R. Barnes to provide the content for today's Lunch and Learn.
Well, Thank you all very, very much. I do appreciate the opportunity to bring this material to you. I think what I would like to do is just give you a little bit of my background. I am a product of Newark. I grew up right off of Central Avenue in Newark. I went to elementary school, high school, stayed in the state of New Jersey even to go to college. And then so sometimes it's very surreal to me that downtown, that Market Street and Broad Street area, I grew up, shopping down there when it was stores that you would no longer know, but when there was Woolworths and Bambergers were down there. And so it's very, very surreal at times. I think the thing that I want to piggyback off of in terms of what Portia and Victor were saying is that we want to provide you this afternoon with material that you can use and actually execute today. And I think that there is something in that overall objective, that it's information that you can use today. You've heard the phrase that says knowledge is power, and particularly in the space of retirement planning in particular, the more knowledge you have, the better the decisions that you can make, and that you're not waiting for someone to actually tell you something, but you are actually being proactive. The thing that I'll share with you about my practice is that I have a financial planning practice, and I have worked with Prudential now for decades. I believe I did the math recently because someone asked me. It'll be something like 37 or 38 years that I've been working with Prudential come next year. And so I have been working with Prudential in many of their different facets in helping organizations like Greater Newark Enterprises to facilitate these kinds of educational seminars or webinars, as they are now called. And so I do have, I won't say I have a wealth of knowledge, but I know some stuff. And I hope to be able to share that with you. All right. So with that, we're going to get started. One of the more basic things that you need to do in any financial pursuit is have some confidence and then have some order. Know where you're going. All right. And so some key things that you need to do when it comes to planning around your finances is that you need to have some structure to that. And these are just a few things that you need to keep in mind. You need to organize whatever financial paperwork that you have. Bank statements, if you have pay stubs, if you're paying yourself, you're keeping track of what you're paying yourself. You have an idea of what it costs to run you. One of the things that I have said in the past, and I'll share it with you now, is what you do in practice is what you will do in the game. And so the way that you plan your personal finances is the way that you'll plan your business. Now, that may not be true in all instances at all times, but there is some truth to that. So you being organized as a person helps you in the organization of your business, because there is a correlation, there is a carryover to being organized about how much you're going to spend, what is a need versus what is a want. Having all of these questions lined up and organized in your mind, that will help you. And so, again, before we dive directly into retirement planning, I think that it's essential from a foundational standpoint that you have structure to the way that you view money. One other quote that I'll give you that I read a long time ago, that was, I think it was in a book by Charles Schwab. And it said that money is always active. it is either actively working for you or acting against you. And so I would just say to you, having a sense of organization, knowing what's important to you, having all of these items will be critical to how you manage your retirement. One of the things that I thought was interesting when you look at organizing yourself and you see this bullet point where it says cancel checks. And I just wondered, when we used to give these presentations in person, you could get a lot of immediate feedback, and maybe we can get that through this. I'm not sure. But I don't know how many people actually write checks anymore. I had to write a check recently, and it just dawned upon me to say, how many people are writing checks? A lot of times we're doing everything electronically, but keeping track of everything, right? Keeping your receipts, particularly from your business as well, keeping your receipts, your business expenses, and tracking that's an important part of being organized. Tracking your spending is also important, right? There is such an immediacy to merchandising right now. The standard being Amazon, that you can get things within 24 hours even. There is a protein shake that I get that I can order it depending upon the time of day. I can have it delivered to my home between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. the next day. 4 a.m. and 8 a.m., excuse me. But that's an expenditure that I need to keep track of in terms of how much I'm spending on groceries. Also, managing your debt. And I won't spend a lot of time with this, but again, from a personal perspective, when you are talking about your retirement, having debt that you still have to pay off in your retiring years, it depletes your ability to have income to help support you for your quality of life, because you are carrying a credit card that may be at 29, interest rate. And so now for every dollar, you're paying 30 cents that goes to Visa or MasterCard or Discover. You need to realize in retirement, you would like to be as lean as possible so that you are not carrying a lot of debt. The bullet point here about curbing impulse purchases, that goes back to what I was saying around, Amazon and getting things done or delivered in, a short period of time, right? We are conditioned, right? Even for me being the last of the baby boomers, when the microwave came around, that's the whole idea of that, is to put your food in there so that it could get hot quicker, right? So now you've gone from your microwave, and now you have an air fryer, and now you want 24-hour turnaround. The window of development and cooking and designing is shrinking. And so as a result, we make decisions, impulse decisions, because we want answers a lot quicker. And I would say to you, I actually said this to a client this morning in an early meeting. I want to credit you for taking your time and making your financial decisions. There is a statement that it says, if it's really that good, then it'll be there later. When it comes to your finances, you shouldn't make impulse decisions. And so it will be critical to you in the way that you manage your finances, that you are not basing it on, I just need to get an answer as quickly as possible, and then I'll move on. No, there are things about life, in particular, finances being one of them, that you should not be rushing through. You should not be trying to get it the answer as quickly as possible. I know that we've got to get product to market. I know that we've got to get resources in place. I know that we have to figure out these things. I agree with that. But when it comes to your money, you need to take time to think about how things are going to go and grow and not make decisions in a knee-jerk reaction, but let it be something that you've thought about, something that you've gotten advice from, that you've spent time thinking through, then make your decision. You measure twice and you cut once. And in order to help you kind of think through some of those expenses, if you've never done this before, this sheet just says, here are some of the things that you can do. And for those of you that are listening, and if you want to get a copy of this, just let us know and we can get that out to you. But it's just it's not the secret sauce. It's not going to, make you healthy, wealthy, and wise. It's just going to put some structure to your finances, be they your business or be they personal. And that's the objective here, is to give you tangible information that you can act on now so that you can be in a position to make better decisions as you are planning for your retirement. When you start looking at the priorities around your spending, one of the things that you want to do is you want to ask yourself, what is a need, what is a want, right? Or what is fixed or what is variable. And when you look at what we have, not demonstrated, but displayed on the screen, fixed mortgage, food, transportation, healthcare, etc. Those are fixed expenses, right? For rent, it's not as fixed as you would like. I just renewed my lease for my office, and everybody is trying to get their pound of flesh from you, and they've got all these reasons to say, well, this is why your lease is going up, George, because we've got to pay more in electricity, we've got more in property taxes, and we're passing that off to you. And that's exactly what happens, unfortunately. I also looked at even my mortgage statement, what tells me what percentage goes to the county expenses and what goes to education. And it's just amazing how much money you spend before when you look at your mortgage and you figure that's just the taxes, the property taxes. That's not paying down your mortgage. It's crazy. But at the end of the day, you've got fixed expenses. And believe it or not, on the variable side, you've got entertainment and vacations, etc. The one thing that I would add on here is subscriptions, right? You've seen the commercials where there's actually a company that will search your name or search your IP address to see how many subscriptions you have to Hulu and to Amazon or to Netflix and et cetera, Disney Plus, right? Because I'm just going to say this to you because I already told you that I am older. I grew up in a time where there were 7 channels, right? And back where I lived at in Newark, we had to use a pair of pliers to turn the TV, right? So, and I mean, I ain't hating on my life experience. I loved it, loved my mom, loved growing up with my brother, my sisters. But I mean, it was, in one sense, the typical situation. We did have a pair of pliers to turn the TV. We did have the hanger that had the foil on it. It's like, for real. That's what we did. But it was just 7 channels. Now, I mean, I'm not even, I can't. How much TV can you watch? How much TV can you watch? I'm sorry. So you need to know what your expenses are. You need to know what is fixed. You need to know what's variable. You need to, again, manage your debt, right? Managing your debt is really critical. I mentioned this earlier. When you get ready to retire, and all of this information that I'm giving you, this is all the lead up to how to look at your retirement. When you look at your retirement, you have to look at, what are my quality of life non-negotiables? All right. I was joking with the team earlier before we came on. I said, I can't get on screen right now because I'm not camera ready. Right. I needed to do my hair. Right. But doing your hair, getting your nails done, getting the pedicure done, making sure that you got a fresh cut, making sure that you've got all of these specifics that make your quality of life your quality of life. You have to ask yourself these questions. And if your quality of life requires X amount of dollars and you have debt that you are paying down, and like I said, you're paying 30 cents on the dollar to go to an institution because you've got debt, it's going to compromise your quality of life. So you need to see that imbalance. Some debt is good. It can help you manage your business. You can leverage some of that, but you need to make sure that when you're making your decisions, that you're making your decisions about debt so that it's not something that you're carrying on, for the rest of your life. And sometimes it's better to do without than to pay for something. Or, the saying is that, well, I got it on sale, so I put it on my card. But then by the time that you paid it off, you've paid back the full price and more. So manage your debt very carefully. When you start to look at your specifics around your practice, right, you want to make sure, hopefully, that after you've put in, the blood, sweat, and tears into building your business, you want to be able to pay yourself. And in paying yourself, you need to make sure that you're saving that, right? We all want to be, big ballers, shot callers, and all of that. But if you are, how do I say this without being offensive? You want to be a big baller, but you've got pennies that you're rolling with, right? You have to pay yourself first. You have to put money aside for yourself. And these are the ways that you can do that so that if an emergency comes up, you don't have to put something on the credit card. Or if you do have to put it on the credit card, then you can pay it off within the 27 days or 28 days before you have to pay the interest on all of the balance that you have, right? So these are the things that you need to kind of commit yourself to when you're at a place in your business that you can pay yourself, right? Not everyone is able to do that, and I get it, but you want to, after you've made sure that you've covered all of your overhead expenses and you've made sure that the key people on your team are appreciated and valued and where you can monetarily make a difference, then make sure that you put your hand out and that you're putting money aside for these items as well. I think that the whole idea of putting money aside is really important. And as Portia said, is that we may have grown up in a situation where you may not have had the opportunity, be it politically or be it just in your own situation. I mentioned to you that I grew up in Newark. There was 4 of us, and my grandfather and a dog and my mother. My mother was a secretary, never learned how to drive. She took the bus to work every day. Her goal for us was to get home safely. Not that there was, any challenges, back then, but just to be home safe. We got home from school. We were what they called the latchkey kids. We all had keys to the house. And as soon as we got in from school, we were to call her to let her know that we were home and that we were doing homework or we were doing our chores, and then we could go outside. Having the knowledge to say for us, hey, make sure that you put money in your piggy bank or in your savings account, that was not my mother's main objective. The main objective that she had was make sure that we had roof over our head, make sure that we had clothes on our back, make sure that we had food in our stomach, right? And back then, we didn't care whether it was gluten free or whatever. I don't even think we were allowed to have food allergies back then, or we would got the beat down. I'm sorry. I get too comfortable. The point is this is that when you are in a position where you can start saving, you need to make sure that you are putting things, as I said early, in an organized way, that you're making sure that you have short-term, long-term, midterm goals. Make sure that you're using your checking account as a revolving, not as a saving, right? Because there's no interest there. Make sure that if you can, that you use a high yield savings account as a place to grow money, because the savings accounts in your banks are giving you 0 to no interest, but a high yield savings account can give you 3 or more % interest, right? So having a strategy and being committed to it. I'm just going to skip past this. At the end of the day, all we're saying is just pay yourself first, right? And I've said that kind of ad nauseum. Well, not ad nauseum, but I've said it to you strongly enough that make sure after you've covered your business overhead, making sure that you've taken care of key employees, right? That you make sure that you pay yourself. All right. When you start to look at your finances, the other thing that you want to do is, what do I do to protect myself if in fact I become sick or disabled, if something happens to my vehicle, depending upon, if you are an Uber or a Lyft driver, what happens if you have an accident, right? You need to make sure that you are protecting yourself. And I say to you very, very confidently, this gets missed, particularly the life insurance side of it, is that if I'm not here and there are people financially committed to me and I'm committed to them, I need to make sure that I have enough life insurance so their quality of life is not compromised. I want you to do a quiet study, just a quiet study. You are on social media platforms, you see and hear all these things all the time. How often do you read about GoFundMe, GoFundMe, GoFundMe? Because people in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s, they have not properly planned for the risk of losing their life or if becoming sick or disabled. And so it is incumbent upon you as a business owner that you not only think about growing and advancing your business, but that you also protect yourself and those who are impacted by you financially, that you protect yourself in any event that any of these things happen. Now, when we go through these slides, we're going to talk about them again at a high level, because depending upon where you are in your business, you may not be able to do the insurance, but it should be on your radar to have it, right? There are some tax benefits to you if you can have coverage, right? And believe it or not, with some of the state programs that are available, you can insure, you could just be a two-person company, right? And one employee could be covered under the spouse, and you only have one premium or one calculation that they need to do for the premium. So you could have a two-person company and only have to pay for one because the other employee is covered under their partner's plan. But health insurance should be a part of that, right? And then you do have the Affordable Care Act, which is another a form of health insurance, and that it's there based upon, they price it on your age, they price it upon where you live, and they price it on what your income is or not. And so the lower your income, the lesser the premiums. But don't get it twisted, people. There is no such thing as a free lunch. the quality of service that you get, or maybe I would just say it this way, the amount of premium that you pay out of pocket is commensurate with the company saying, hey, we want you to pay more out of your pocket first before you get into this cost share with us. And so these premiums are not for the faint of heart, right? But again, I don't want to belabor the point. You need to make sure that health insurance is a part of your overall business plan. Long-term care, I'm going to cover this with disability. Just keep this in mind. Long-term care is about service that you receive to get you better. Disability is money that you receive while you are not better and not working at full capacity. So it's important for you to know one is about service and one is about money. In your business, you may not be able to address all of these things, but you at least need to be aware of them. All right. And then property and casualty, the only thing that I'll say to you about that is that make sure that your businesses are, properly insured, right? Don't skimp on that because things go backwards and sideways. And as a result, you could open yourself up to greater liability because you were trying to pinch pennies on your insurances. And so don't do that, right? Don't do that. Make sure that you protect your business. Make sure that the entities that you are using for services, that they are up to code and all of that, because your product and your team and the materials, those are not easily replaced. So it'll be important for you to make sure that you do that. The last thing that I'll talk about in terms of risk, and then we'll move on to the retirement in particular, is make sure, again, the quality of life that you provide for those that are left behind, you're going to be covering your loss of income. You're going to be covering your loss of utilities, right? And making sure that the monthly expenses are met. You see here, it says creating a legacy. The whole idea of life insurance, it's about others. It's about others. It's about your ability, your desire to protect others. And so depending upon where you are, what your health history is, and we don't have time to go into all of the details, but I will just say to you, in simple order, term insurance is probably the least expensive, and it's something that you definitely should consider. And there are really cool programs available that you can even get coverage within 24 hours, depending upon your health. Later in the presentation, I'm going to put my QR code up. You scan it. You can get that kind of information, not just the life insurance, but in general, we can talk about other things. But I can't say to you enough how important this is. I do want to do one other thing here because I know we won't have time to get to it. When you talk about life insurance, I also think that it's important that you have an estate plan, that you have a will. All right, specifically that you have a will that documents what I call that speaks peace to the foolishness, right? That you have a document, especially if you have a business, right? And you want to make sure that that business continues, or you want to make sure that it gets dissolved, you got to document stuff with an attorney. You can use the websites to help develop that. I'm old school. I like seeing the person. I like shaking hands. So I just want to say, pretty pleased with sugar on top if you don't have a will. And this is not just for the people that are attending this website or this webinar. This is for all of the listeners, right? All of the listeners at GNC, right? I want you to make sure you have a will. You will save people lots of drama if there is a will. I'm single. Nobody cares. People care. All right. People care. Do it. All right. Now, when we talk about retirement, what I want you to understand is that there are basically two ways for you to look at your retirement. Right. This information here is important, but I want you to look at your retirement in two specific ways. I want you to look at it as an individual, and then I want you to look at it as a business. As an individual, you could, at the very least, I believe the minimum amount is $7,500 for this year. I could be wrong there. Don't hold me to that. But at the very least, if you have no retirement whatsoever, you should be putting money in an IRA. And every little bit counts, right? So if you can only afford 500 over the course of the year, then it's 500 it is. But put money in your IRA. If you don't have enough employees to have a business retirement plan, which they have SEPs and 401ks, there are other kinds of corporate retirement plans. Don't worry about it. Start with the individual, right? And when you look at the individual retirement accounts, you've got a traditional IRA and you also have a Roth IRA, right? Your accountant or your tax person can help you determine which one would be better. In the time that we have here this afternoon, I can't really get into the nuances, but both of them are good. I would say to you, the younger you are, bad English intended, Roth would be more better. And again, I would say to you, your retirement savings is about providing income for you for your quality of life later on. And so you don't want the person that you grow to be to dislike the person that you are now, because you could not discipline yourself to save for your older self. So take time to just think about that. You're all about the hustle and the grind to make your business work. I got that. But you also need to be able to, even at some minimal level, is put money aside for tomorrow, right? Put money aside. There is a proverb that says that the prudent person, they see the day of evil and they hide themselves, but the fool goes ahead and is destroyed. The prudent person sees that at some point I am going to get older. At some point I will need money and I'm going to change my life and my actions accordingly. The fool says, I'll get it. I gotta get this right now. I gotta handle this right now. And then unfortunately, what happens is you get all caught up in your feelings because you're older and you realize I really didn't act responsibly. And who you going to be mad at? You're going to be mad at everybody else when in reality, you should be mad at yourself. So when we talk about retirement planning and specifically, right, everything that I spoke about earlier leads you up to the discipline of, am I saving as a individual or am I saving as a business? And if you're saving as an individual, you could go into a traditional IRA, you could go into a Roth IRA. And the thing that I will say to you is that the traditional IRA benefits you in your taxes in the year that you make the contribution. It grows without you paying taxes on it. But when you take it out in your traditional IRA, when you take it out, you have to pay the taxes. If you do the Roth, it doesn't benefit you in the year that you make the contribution. It does grow without you paying taxes, and it comes out tax-free after it's been there for 5 years. So I would submit to you that though you have these other options of retirement, right? I mentioned the 401ks and you have the SEPs and there's other vehicles available to you. I would say starting with should I be in a traditional IRA? Should I be in a Roth IRA? That would be where I would wrestle. So we've run up against my time at this point. I can pass this back to Victor, and then we can go from there.
Awesome, George. Thank you so much for that information. A lot of really prudent stuff. Let me, if I may, piggyback on what you said, a couple of things. As GNEC, as being a lender, liability insurance, right? Casualty insurance, critical. We will not close a loan for any business that doesn't have that type of insurance. Period. We will not give you money if you don't have it. And we have many, many businesses that come to us with that kind of, that hole in the donut per se. They don't have that. So that's critical. And I really appreciate you mentioning that because, you have to do that as a business owner. You have to protect yourself and your business, particularly yourself, right? That's really critical. Number one. Number two, when we do our underwriting, right? When we analyze prospective businesses for a prospective loan, there is no negative, negative thought to seeing that you are paying yourself. On the contrary, one of the things that I look for when I'm working with our underwriting team is the prospective, client paying themselves? Like, is their income generated enough so that they're thinking about themselves? Folks, this whole idea that you gotta live off of cans of tuna or, I don't know, bread and cheese or something for 6 months while you're making it is absolute nonsense. I apologize for saying that. If you don't think that your business can generate enough revenue to pay yourself a little bit. Now, I'm not talking about you're not immediately going to pay yourself $150,000, but if you can't sort of, do that, pay yourself a little bit, then you might consider going in, getting yourself a job. And that's really critical. Now, George, if I can ask you, you've mentioned the traditional versus Roth IRA, and thank you so much for that because I think it's really critical. And you did have a slide on compound interest, so that's also a critical piece. But how easy is it, to open like a traditional IRA? Like, people might be thinking, oh my goodness, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Like, is that a barrier to opening one of these?
So that's a good question, Victor. And again, most of this stuff, dare I say, is turnkey. You have critical pieces of information about yourself: address, date of birth, social security number. You can do that with an advisor. You can do that within a bank. It doesn't matter. And again, what's important is that you do it. So the application process, and even nowadays, everything can be done digitally. You got DocuSign. So you give this critical information, you can open up an account. I will also say, though, what you invest in is what's going to be just as important. Knowing your risk tolerance, right? So not everyone is going to dive in at the deep end. You're going to start maybe at the shallow end and work your way. Your risk tolerance is going to be an important part. And whomever you choose to work with, if they don't focus on that piece for you, get to stepping, right? They need to do what's in your best interest. And so risk tolerance is very much a part of that advisor working and knowing you.
Great, thank you. And of course, having a financial advisor, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the key pieces as you, move forward and grow your business and build equity, right? So we always tell prospective clients, having a good attorney, having a good accountant, having a good financial advisor, those are three, friends that can stay with you for life. They'll get to know you. They'll get to really build a relationship with you and provide you a lot of information, as to how to grow that, how to stay out of trouble, right? Maybe a lawyer, but how to manage your funds and all that. So let me ask, George, we have a question. Let me see here. Can you share some insights about putting together a trust document for Medicaid looking back 5 years?
Wow. That's a heady question. because Medicaid, if you are in fact saying Medicaid, Medicaid is based off of an individual's not having money, right? So the state is going to help them with health costs and long-term care because they do not have any money. And so if you're saying Medicaid, that's a little bit more involved than even I'm prepared to say, because it requires you to speak to a person possibly divesting themselves of assets, changing names, and that is a space where we have to be very carefully, where one should tread and not swim. So I'm going to plead the fifth.
Ladies and gentlemen, is, GNEC offers these types, a monthly sort of lunch and learn. Our next one is August 13th. We will have the one and only Michelle Osorio from New Jersey Economic Development Authority talking about NJEDA and its business grant program. So, that is a great sort of conversation. We are also on September 17th. We have the Garden State Entrepreneurs Expo here, right in Newark, New Jersey, from 10:30 to 1 p.m. You can check all these things out at gnec.org. So to find out more, the Garden State Entrepreneurs Expo is, we're going to have a 25 organizations all together talking about, what services we can provide. So those are key. And George, before I let you go, there are two things. Number one, I do want to state that GNEC and Prudential are talking about formalizing a partnership and a pilot program to see how we can offer financial advisory service to clients. So that's really exciting because we do want to be proactive in helping business owners build long-term equity. And the last thing, George, I'm going to leave you with this question. You can answer, and then we'll wrap, because this is a key one here. A little bit of insights, if you don't mind, about, what are the best ways to start investing for my children's future.
Okay.
And, how they differ depending on the goal: college, first to home, general wealth building. That's a good one.
Yep, I think that's basically there are two ways, right? You can do what's traditionally called as a 529, right? A 529, it's not based off of income. You can put that in there, and if you New Jersey actually has a plan. I think I can mention this. It's called the New Jersey Best. You don't need an advisor. You just go there. What is it? I think it's Franklin Templeton is the underlying investment firm under it. They're doing a lot better now than they were, 20 years ago. But 529s would be the best thing. If people scan the QR code, then you'll be able to ask these questions, and then I can get back to you more specifically around particularly the gentleman that asked the question, or the lady that asked the question around the trust, because there's a convergence of truths there. And so it would be easier to have that sidebar than it would be in this situation. So
Here we go. Here's the scan meeting. So feel free, ladies and gentlemen. And, George and other potential colleagues, they'll be able to help. But, we are really here at GNEC. We're really excited to be able to draw upon Prudential's vast expertise. I mean, you're talking about an international network, and not that, many of us need that, but the knowledge, the products are there. The phenomenal services there. So we're excited to hopefully launch something by the end of the year. But George, I really appreciate your time, and also Portia, of course, as well. We value the partnership, and we'll continue having these conversations. We'll do another one with such presentations. Maybe we'll dive in a little bit deeper into some specifics, some questions that people may ask. This recording will be broadcast throughout our social media channels. Again, always check us out at www.gnec.org. George, do you have a website or anything that you'd like to share, LinkedIn or anything of that nature?
No, if you scan me, you'll get me,
There you go.
and then you can also Google me. That's a new thing for me too. But yes, absolutely. Am on LinkedIn. Reach out. We're here to be of help, seeking to be of service is our tagline.
Excellent. Well, thank you, George. Thank you, Portia. Thanks you to everyone who has attended today. Again, check us out on our socials and on our website and sign up for our newsletter. You'll get a lot of valuable information. And if you're seeking a micro business loan or any technical assistance, any business support services, we are here for you. Thank you. And I guess that will conclude our presentation. Take care.